Hi guys. For today's YouTube chat, I wanted to talk about 4 SIBO microbes that you may never have heard of. But before we dive into the specific microbes, I want you to remember that microbes need to have the genetic capacity to produce whatever the end products are that we're talking about. And just because they have the genetic capacity doesn't mean they're using it. So just because you see these microbes in your testing doesn't necessarily mean that the production of the end products is actually happening. And we may not even be able to see it on stool testing or whatever type of testing you're looking at. With stool testing in particular, it's mainly reflective of what's happening in the colon, and we have 25 or so feet of small intestine to still consider. So keep all of that in mind as we go through the individual microbes. Microbe number 1 is Veillonea. This microbe received a lot of attention a couple years ago when it was found that athletes tend to carry more of this microbe, and there was a flurry of, okay, well, who's going to be the first one to produce this Veillonea probiotic? And then all of a sudden the flurry died down and we haven't really heard about it since then. Now, why is that? Likely because we figured out that Veillonea is there in response to oxidative stress. So it's likely that Veillonea is stepping in to mop up the end products associated with exercise-induced oxidative stress, which may help reduce the stress burden for athletes and also improve their endurance. So yeah, definitely potential usefulness with Veillonea, but colonizing or attempting to colonize with a probiotic likely isn't automatically just going to give you increased endurance. You're still going to have to work up and start exercising and increasing your threshold for exercise on your own in order to encourage Veillonea to colonize. There also seems to be an association between Veillonea and cholesterol, but that hasn't really been elaborated on at this point. And now, as far as what Veillonea does, it does produce hydrogen. And so I have worked with a couple clients who, for whom their dysbiosis or SIBO started after running marathons. And so a marathon can be a pretty big stressor on its own, especially if you don't have great digestion, if you don't absorb your nutrients very well. So perhaps that's all part of it, but maybe it is this Veillonea connection where there's an increase in hydrogen all of a sudden to account for the exercise-induced oxidative stress. So that's microbe number one, Veillonea. Microbe number 2 is Disulfovibrio. This microbe has been garnering more attention recently, but I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned it because it's a pretty special microbe. So Disulfovibrio is an opportunist. It produces hydrogen sulfide, and it's special mainly because of its resilience. So it's commonly found in aquatic environments, in waterlogged soils. It's been found living in extreme environments such as hot water aquifers. It can survive oxygen-rich as well as oxygen-poor environments. And there may be bioremediation potential with this microbe for toxic radionuclides such as uranium, which is interesting because I do run hair tissue mineral analyses with my clients often, and I have found elevated uranium in those with elevated Disulfovibrio. So definitely the potential for connection there, especially considering that one of the theories for hydrogen sulfide upregulation is taxed detoxification pathways. So thinking about methylation and glutathione and the sulfation pathways. If those pathways are taxed, then the body may be compensating by upregulating hydrogen sulfide production. Now, who's to say whether that's happening in the gut or that's happening at a cellular level? We don't really know, but that is one of the theories. So the genus Disulfovibrio also tends to be elevated in those with ADHD, autism, brain trauma, colon cancer, depression, high blood pressure, IBS, liver cirrhosis, MS, obesity, rheumatoid arthritis, schizophrenia, and type 2 diabetes. Now, who knows whether Disulfovibrio predisposed those things or whether it adapted to the environment that those conditions created? We don't really know. Another special feature about Disulfovibrio is that it doesn't really consume carbohydrates. And so I do tend to see it in those who have utilized ketogenic or carnivore or low carb diets for longer periods of time without managing their microbiome. Now, sometimes people are capable of using these restrictive diets long term and nothing will happen to them. Their bodies just are able to handle it well, but for other people, not so much. And so I do often work with clients who've used very restrictive diets for, potentially longer periods of time or longer than they should have. And now all of a sudden they're in this position where they've maybe lost some diversity, lost some competition, and disulfovibrio or the other hydrogen sulfide producers get the upper hand. So disulfovibrio, microbe number 2, SIBO microbe number 2. Microbe number 3, the genus Clostridium. And I feel like Clostridium are underrated contributors to SIBO, partly because they don't show up on stool testing, and they may not necessarily grow in response to lactulose. So you either have to be doing an organic acids test or a SIBO breath test where you use glucose as the substrate. Now, there are so many different species and strains of Clostridia. Some of them are beneficial, some of them not so much. But some species produce hydrogen while others produce methane, and others even produce hydrogen sulfide. So you've got the full spectrum of SIBO potential here with the genus Clostridium. Higher Clostridium are found in autism. In excess, this genus is particularly problematic due to its ability to prevent breakdown of dopamine, which can create excitability. And so it's also been found to contribute to schizophrenia, OCD, and anxiety. You definitely want to pay attention if you have any slow COMT or COMT variants on top of having overgrowth of Clostridia, because of course the COMT gene is in part responsible for breaking down dopamine. So if you've got a slow COMT and you have Clostridia overgrowth, you're going to be super excitable, maybe super anxious, OCD, anxiety, etc. As I mentioned, there are beneficial species of Clostridia as well. So for example, Clostridium eutactis is protective against IBS, so definitely don't demonize the entire genus. And then Clostridium catus produces beneficial short-chain fatty acids. If you have overgrowth of this genus, a general suggestion is that you'd want to curb your sugar intake, as this genus loves glucose. And it does produce spores, which means that treatment may take 12 weeks or longer. So you want to go through multiple life cycles and production of spores. So similar to yeast, it often needs a longer treatment time. So that is microbe. I didn't actually have 4, I had 3. Okay, so that's SIBO microbe number 3. If you guys would like a cheat sheet on the types of SIBO microbes and the gases they produce, you can visit the blog post that I wrote on this subject, and then there's a link there to the cheat sheet. And then if you are having issues with SIBO, of course you are welcome to book in with me in person in our Duncan clinic, or I also do video consultations. If you like this content, give me a thumbs up. You can also, if you'd like more content like this, I do post more frequently on Instagram. And if you have any suggestions, definitely let me know, and I'll do my best to post whatever your suggested topics are. So that's it for today. See you guys soon.